I'm going to summarize now all of the different display options that you'll find on typical computers, but particularly in the Shearwater models. We ran through them all earlier, so I'm just going to put them all together. I'm going to assume that you're happy with the stop and the time, right? That's all the deco stops. When you see 9 and 4, it means stop at 9 meters for 4 minutes. I'm also going to assume that you're happy with the NDL. You know that for a no-stop dive, that NDL number will get down towards 0, but never below 0. If you go beyond your no decompression limit, that then puts you to require decompression stops. So then you're going to start to see a few other things. You're always going to see the TTS, okay? And that's going to be the time to surface. If you're on a no-stop dive, the time to surface is just a travel time to get you home. If the NDL is clocked down to 0 and you're now going to go beyond that and you're going to be into stops, decompression, requiring decompression stops, the time to surface, it's going to include all of your deco stops plus all of your travel time. So the computer is set for an ascent rate, and at the same time you have to remember to turn off the available gases. If they're defined, the computer is going to assume that they're there. So you need to make sure you only have enabled the gases that you need. Again, when the NDL has clicked off and you've now gone into decompression, there's no need to see the NDL. Instead, that's typically replaced by SEAL, which stands for the ceiling. And what that's going to mean is that at your first stop, the ceiling is the same as your first stop. It is essentially, when you're at the ceiling, it's when you're at your maximum amount of super saturation. If you're using gradient factor, well then it's backed off the M value by whatever amount. But the idea here is that the ceiling, it's always moving. It's always moving shallower. The longer you wait, that ceiling will become shallower, and it will become shallower before the stop depth changes. The stop depth will jump in increments of 3, but the ceiling will jump in increments of 1. The other thing that we've talked about is the at +5. And what that is that's going to be your TTS in 5 minutes time. What will the new TTS be after 5 minutes? If the new TTS is bigger than the old TTS, that means that you're still on gassing. That means that you've got more deco to come. So if it's bigger, then it means you're on gassing. And then if the TTS in 5 minutes time is less, well, that means that you're now in deco, decompression is occurring. And of course you would expect to see your time to surface getting smaller and smaller the longer you're waiting. So if the new TTS is smaller, it means you're off gassing or you're doing your deco, is what we would say. Deco is happening. The other display we talked about was the delta +5. And what that is it's the difference in TTS between the current TTS, and the new one that you got from the app 5. And what that will tell you is that if it's a positive number, that means the TTS is increasing, which therefore means you're on gassing. So if it's positive, you're on gassing. And if it's negative, it means you're off gassing. You're in deco, okay? We then looked at something called GF99. And then what that is your current amount of the M value. So it's your current percentage of the M value of your leading compartment, whichever compartment happens to be leading. We don't need to know which is the leading compartment. We just need to know that I'm at a percentage of it. So whenever it's above 0, that means I've got some amount of supersaturation. When it's at 99, that's the maximum amount. When it's at 1, that's the minimum amount. So above 0 means that you're off gassing. And the higher that number gets, the closer you are to the M value. And we said that you can use this to make more aggressive stops. If you were programmed on, let's say, 50, 70, it's going to stop you on those gradient factors, but you can now decide, actually, I want to stop every time it's 90. You could use this value to make more aggressive stops. And what that really means is getting out earlier than you planned. So that's if you're required to do those. The last one that we looked at was the surf GF, or the surfacing gradient factor. And what this is the gradient factor that you would be at if you immediately surfaced. If you found yourself at the surface at that moment, the ambient pressure is 1 bar. We know what the tissue loads are. Therefore, we can calculate how much under or over the M value that you're going to be. And it was by looking at the surface gradient factor that what this did is it always, well, hopefully we can watch it counting down. And this gave us quite a nice idea where, let's say we set our dive to a gradient factor of, let's say, 40, 85, let's say. The deco would clear once we're at the 85. But then I could stay in the water looking at my surface GF to say, yeah, I actually want to give myself an extra 5 buffer or a 10 buffer. So literally, because I can watch that number go down, I can choose my real ending surface gradient factor.